My name is Neeraja. I am a board-certified genetic counselor at Mapmygenome and currently the Vice President for Genetic Counseling. It's a pleasure to meet with all of you today. Our intention is to really talk about some of the prevention probabilities of doing prevention and management of lifestyle disorders by using the power of your DNA. So I'm going to walk you through some of the basic information about genetics, maybe take you a little bit back to your school, talk about a little bit of basic biology, and how we can use all of this information and the power of DNA to reduce the risk and prevent chronic illnesses. As you all know, India is one of the highest today, one of the highest frequencies of having cardiac anomalies, cardiac attacks, cardiovascular diseases, obesity, and diabetes. So we are the capital, unfortunately, of cardiovascular conditions, which we should not be proud about. But post-COVID, that paradigm is slowly shifting. People are realizing that there is more benefit in preventing health conditions. Comorbidities like cardiovascular diseases and diabetes have worsened many individual symptoms. Unfortunately, a lot of us have lost our family members, our near and dear ones, because of COVID. The treatments for which got difficult with all the confounding comorbidities that we have currently. So post-COVID, there is a realization for all of us that we should probably start focusing more on being healthy rather than treating ourselves when we are sick. And that's the basic focus that we have today. So I'm going to share my slides and I'll walk you through the introduction and some of the discussion that we have. If you have questions, please feel free to write it on the chat box and we will take it up at the end of the session. So one of the reasons why I put here saying ABCs of life is because, as we all know, there are 26 alphabets in English. Our genetic code is the essential, basis of our entire makeup, right? So can anybody guess how many letters do you have in your genetic information? There are only 4. It's A, T, C, and G. Just simple 4 letters that make up your entire genetic material. Permutation and combinations of these put together makes up the instructions or the recipe for your body. That exactly tells us how to function, what to do, when to do, how do you grow up, and all of this is designed so simply and so naturally right from birth. So taking you back to high school, if you all remember biology, and I hope some of you liked biology, this is the basic structure and function of our cell, right? Our body is made up of trillions and trillions of cells, right? Each cell has something called a nucleus. Nucleus is essentially the powerhouse of your cell. Now, inside each nucleus, if you were to take your magnifying glass or your microscope and magnify it to a certain extent, you will see these structures called chromosomes. Chromosomes are nothing but your genetic material, and it's just packed in a nice fancy manner. So all of us have 46 chromosomes. So you have 23 in pairs. You get 1 copy from your mom, you get 1 copy from your dad, right? So from 1 to 22 are numbered as autosomes. And then you have the sex chromosomes, in which males have an X and Y and females have an X and X. If you open up or unwind this chromosome, which is nicely tightly packed, you will see what we call as our genes. So genes is nothing but your DNA base pairs, which is the letters, the A, T, C, and G put together. So a certain sequence of your DNA is referred to as a gene. So gene is essentially a sentence. DNA is essentially the 4 letters that make up your genetic information. So I hope this gives you some context to additional discussion that we're going to have further. One more interesting fact is if you were to open up the entire genetic material in our body and line it up together, you could actually, measure it, you could go around the earth 7 times. So imagine how much genetic information is actually packed inside one single cell of your body, right? So we have 3 billion base pairs or letters per cell, okay? And it contains 25,000 genes. So these are essentially the genes that gives you instructions. Any changes in these genes could also increase your risk of developing health conditions. So let's understand a little bit of inheritance and what it means before we go ahead. So certain genetic conditions can be passed on from one generation to the next. These are essentially because there is a genetic change that causes a particular disease or causes a particular condition. So I'm sure you all have heard about conditions called Down syndrome, which is fairly common in the general population, wherein kids are born with certain health conditions and health issues, and they may look a little different from their parents. This is a genetic condition, often not inherited from the parents. Sometimes it may be. So if there is a genetic condition or there's a simple trait, we do inherit these from our parents. And that's the reason why you look a little alike like your dad, a little like your mom, and a mix of both of them, right? Because you have your own genetic information that comes from your mom and your dad, and a combination of all of that makes you, right? So how the genetic changes are inherited in your family will determine, who will be affected, who may not be affected, or who has an increased risk and who doesn't. Now, along with genetic factors in a family, we also share a lifestyle, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in some time. A couple of more fun facts here. So, can you see my window now?
Yes.
So, what percentage of DNA do you think you share with a monkey, a rhesus monkey, a banana, and chimpanzee? So I'll give you all like 30 seconds to write something fun in the chat box. Let me see what answers can you guys come up with.
This screen is not.
Is the chat box enabled?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Nobody's responded yet. All right. So let me give you the answer in that case. You share 50% of your genetic information with a banana. Can you imagine how different you look from a banana? You share about 98.5% with a chimpanzee and 93% with a rhesus monkey. How much DNA do you think you share with each other? 99.9%, which means there's only 0.1% that differs from you and your neighbor, right? But that 0.1% is what makes you you. So what is that makes you so different from each other? So if you take a section of the genetic information and you have a bunch of letters called A, T, C, and G, right? And there's this one letter change called T that's marked in red, and that's you. There's another person who, instead of having the T, has something called C. And that's one of the reasons why you all are different from each other. So we refer these as single nucleotide polymorphisms or SNPs. So these single nucleotide polymorphisms, which is essentially this one letter change that goes from T to a C, makes you you and makes you so unique, right? So this is the reason why you are different from everybody else. And there are more than 10 billion such changes that the human beings can have that makes you different from one another. So a simple change from that T to a C may not be something that you can observe. It may not make, sometimes it may not have an evident physical manifestation, but it may sometimes increase your risk of developing different health conditions. These don't have to be inherited in the way that, if it gets passed down, everybody gets it. But it has a heritable component. It is something that's shared between family members. So when we think about chronic diseases, for example, cancers, diabetes, heart conditions, stroke, we know that these are severe conditions that affect majority of the population. Health, your lifestyle, your preventative tests, being healthy, eating healthy, all of these things make a huge difference in reducing your risk of having chronic diseases, right? All of us have been told to go through our preventative tests annually, and I know COVID kind of made that more difficult because a lot of us have missed our annual examinations. So what are other factors other than, going through and having a healthy lifestyle or going through these examinations that can help us? So when we think about these chronic conditions or health conditions, these are essentially referred to as multifactorial diseases. What does that mean? It means that there are multiple factors, including genetic and non-genetic, that can increase your risk of developing the disease. So I think about it like a puzzle. So it's a puzzle wherein there are multiple pieces that, when fits in together, increases your risk of developing the disease. One is your lifestyle. So alcohol intake, smoking intake, how much red meat consumption do you have? How much fatty foods do you eat or junk food do you eat on a daily basis? How is your diet? Is it carb heavy? Is it heavy with protein? These are all things that would make a difference, right? How much do you sleep? How much do you exercise? That is a huge factor. Are you somebody who works out in the gym on a regular basis, or are you someone who's sedentary and have obesity because of that? Or are you someone who will occasionally go for a walk or exercise 3 times a week? Genetic factors are factors that we inherit in a family, and it may increase your risk of developing certain conditions, and we'll talk about this a little more. Family history. So like I said, along with your genetic factors, we tend to share our family along with our dietary factors, along with our lifestyle as well. So when we think about family history, we know that there are multiple people in the family who may eat together and eat alike, right? So they may eat similar kinds of food. They may tend to eat fatty foods together, may tend to go out over the weekends and binge. Sometimes they may go out with their friends and have binge drinking. At the same time, you also tend to share similar lifestyles with your family. So you may influence, or you may get influenced by other family members. So if somebody in your family is exercising more frequently, there is highly likely that you are more motivated to exercise yourself. So these are additional factors other than the genetic factors that you tend to share with your family members. Environmental factors. So these are, factors that, for example, like pollution, your nutrition that you get, how much amount of nutrients are available in your food. Are you exposed to radiation? These are all factors that can increase or decrease your risk of developing various conditions. So when you put all of these factors together, it can either increase your risk of developing the condition or decrease your risk for developing the condition. Okay. So when you are looking at all of these risk factors, this image is a really good visualization of what the risk factors can do. So it's about balancing all these risk factors together. So you have the first scenario wherein there are a set of individuals who have a variant A, and there are a set of individuals who have a variant T. Individuals who have a variant A are slightly at a higher likelihood from the genetic perspective to develop, let's say, type 1 diabetes. Individuals who have the variant T have a lower likelihood of developing the diabetes. All right. Now you compound these, or you put together your lifestyle factors and your dietary and exercise patterns together. So in the second scenario, the individuals who had the variant A, along with having the genetic predisposition or the susceptibility, they also drink and smoke. What does that do? It increases their risk of developing the diabetes altogether, right? At the same time, in scenario 2, there are individuals who have this variant called T, which has a lower susceptibility or likelihood of developing the diabetes, right? And along with that, they also exercise and they eat healthy. So what does that do? It reduces the risk further of developing these conditions. Okay. Then you have your scenario 3, wherein you have the individuals A, where they already had a genetic susceptibility to develop diabetes, but they are healthier, they have a healthy lifestyle, they are exercising well, they're eating well. And that balances their risk of developing these conditions and reduces the chance that they will develop diabetes. On the other hand, people who have the variant T, which increases their risk of developing the condition, reduces the risk of developing the condition, but they have been smoking and they have alcohol intake and have an unhealthy lifestyle. This will overall, again, increase the risk of developing the condition. So this essentially means that your genetic factors or these susceptibility factors alone, these SNPs alone, is not enough for you to have the health condition. This may be a trigger, but it doesn't mean that it's going to shoot the bullet, right? So it is a trigger, but the remaining lifestyle dietary factors are things that will shoot the bullet, and you will want increase the risk significantly to develop these conditions in your lifetime. So I hope this image was a helpful explanation for the basis of why we are looking at these SNPs right now. So this is an age-old saying, but I think it's very, very apt in this age: is prevention is better than cure, especially post-COVID. And what this essentially means is, while you cannot modulate your genetic factors, you cannot control what you receive from your parents, neither can you control what you pass on to your children. What you can control is the remaining, is to, one, know if you have a genetic susceptibility or predisposition to develop these conditions. Two, you can control your lifestyle, your dietary factors. You can make sure that you are healthier, you are taking care of yourself, and you're monitoring yourself at a regular interval, so that if there is a possibility of any changes in your health, that is caught early, right? These are things that are in your control, and that's your toolbox. So you can use these little tools to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and you're healthy, rather than trying to fix something that's broken after you have developed a condition or a disease. So preventative healthcare, which essentially is focusing on detecting the disease early, especially when there is a window or an opportunity for treatment, for an earlier treatment and an improved outcome. So our agenda is to make sure that we are able to identify these health conditions or possibility of happening earlier, so that we can take certain steps to reduce our risk, to make sure that we can be healthy, make sure that we can try and work on our management, so that it reduces your risk of having a chronic disease or an acute disease over a long period of time. So I'm sure most of us have had at least one person in our family who has had, for example, type 2 diabetes, which usually starts in our 40s. But as the person grows older, as the diabetes gets more severe, gets difficult to control with medications, and somebody switch to an insulin, which again, they may try multiple medications and change different things. Eventually, what we see is that diabetes does end up affecting your eyes, your kidneys, your heart. So, what happens is this chronic health issue that keeps escalating. So if there is a way where you can reduce your risk of developing diabetes even before it starts, and know that you are at risk, then that significantly reduces the chances that you will have other complications in life, and that you will have a better chance at a healthier aging process as we grow older. So personalized genomics is essentially a pathway to a healthier person, healthier you. What it does is, one, it helps us understand, these vital traits that might increase our risk of developing conditions, mitigates your health risks, so it reduces the chances that you will have various health concerns by making sure you have an action plan that you can use to reduce your risk of developing the condition, provide you with the access to the best treatment. So we will talk a little bit about pharmacogenomics, or how genetics can help in identifying the best medication that might work for you. It will improve quality of life, because as you start living healthier, the quality of life will also become healthier. You will have a better chance to, have a healthy aging process, have lesser pains in life, and lesser health issues. And it helps you detect life-threatening conditions at an earlier age before it can get fatal. Overall, all of these put together reduces the risk or reduces the costs at healthcare. So we know that, having treatments, whether it's for cardiac vascular diseases, having an angioplasty, having a bypass, are expensive. The same with cancers. It is an expensive process. It is painful. It is expensive. But if we are attempting to be healthier, if we are trying to reduce our risk of developing these diseases, would eventually bring down the healthcare costs as well and improve our quality of life. So this is a bit of a background on what we are essentially doing. So if you take an individual where the risk of developing the disease varies amongst all of us, so there are some of us who may have a moderate risk, there are some of us who may have a high risk, and some of us who have a normal risk. So let's say the people in blue color are the individuals who don't have an increased risk of developing conditions or health related issues, while the people who are marked off in red and pink are the individuals with a moderate or a high risk of developing certain genetic condition basis their genetic makeup, right? The genetic testing is essentially assessing these individuals before they have become symptomatic, or rather before they have developed any signs or symptoms, and stratify them into groups. One are individuals who are genetically at a higher risk of developing these conditions, and one are group of individuals who are at a normal or a baseline risk of developing these conditions. The people who have a higher risk or who are marked in red and pink doesn't necessarily have to go and develop the condition. It is not a 100% chance, but it increases the risk as compared to the normal population. And so an early intervention can be helpful to make sure that we can manage and manifest the onset of the disease, and make sure that even if they develop the condition, that they are being managed well and have been identified at an earlier stage where it's not as severe, right? Now, the people in blue, although they don't have a genetic risk, there are these other factors we talked about: your lifestyle, your diet, your family history, which may actually increase your risk of developing these conditions anyway. So it is important to understand that, not just the genetic factors, but even the absence of genetic factors, somebody can go on and develop these conditions, right? So now think about how can genetic information actually give you the power to unlock your DNA, or that can in turn help you open your life to a healthier life, a healthier self, healthier person, right? So one of the products that I want to talk about today is Genome Patri. So this, just like your parents probably saw your Janam Patri when you were born, or your Kundli when you were born, to know what's ahead of you in life. Genome Patri is essentially, the data that can unlock your health, and it can unlock the data to a healthier self. We also have many other products, including Medicamap, Cardio, Gynac. All of these are focused on various health concerns. MyFitGene, for example, is for somebody who is more interested in understanding what muscle type they have and what kind of sports maybe, may work out better for them, what kind of workouts may work better, what nutrition may work better. Genome Patri Immunity has recently been launched as a test that can also help you understand about your immunity against COVID and various other conditions. Nutrigene focuses on Nutrigenomics, wherein your genetic information can actually help you understand what kinds of foods might be more suitable for you, what may not work, and what is the possible genetic risk for deficiencies in various micro and macronutrients, so that you can make sure that you have a nutrition plan that's personalized for you, and that can be the best, so that your growth and your nutrition can be healthiest and the most suited. Genome Patri Heritage is a test that looks for your ancestry. So it is something that is customized to the Indian population, to the Indian heritage as well. So if anybody is curious about, where you come from or what kind of ancestry do you have, you can compare your DNA makeup to the remaining parts of the world to understand what part and how much part of, different parts of the world do you come from. So let's talk about Genome Patri and talk about these specific tests. What it does, it allows you to understand the various genetic variations that somebody may have. It allows you to understand how it would impact your health. We offer genetic counseling as a part of the test, wherein we will sit down with you and discuss the findings. And essentially, it helps you come up with an action plan for your future, understand how you could use this genetic information to plan your family health and assessments. How it works, it's a simple process wherein sample collection is done using a swab. So it's essentially like a cotton bud that you have to rub at the insides of your cheek. It's completely painless. It's a simple instruction kit that is sent to your home. along with proper instructions written down. You can just follow the steps and you can ship the sample back to us at the lab. At the lab, once your DNA is isolated and processed, the quality control is looked at, and we are making sure that all the tests are done to make sure your DNA is ready for further processing. Your DNA is then analyzed, so your genetic information is read. So just like you would read a book, we read your genetic information to understand what are the different variations that you may potentially be carrying. And then a report is generated. Once the report is generated, you have a conversation with one of the genetic counselors who can then help you understand the various health concerns that have come up, or different kinds of assessments that you can do to make sure that you continue to remain healthy. So how do you calculate these risk scores that I've been talking about, or the genetic scores? So we calculate this using something called polygenic risk scores, or PRS. This estimates individuals' genetic risk or predisposition for a particular trait or a condition. So, for example, in Genome there are some of these fun traits too. What is your risk for having a higher dependency on caffeine? What's your risk of having black hair or brown eyes? And along with that, you also look at various sets of health conditions, including cardiovascular diseases, neuropsychiatric diseases, cancers, gastrointestinal concerns, and nutrition, as well as performance-based concerns. So PRS, or the polygenic risk score, is essentially a sum of all the known common variants that we have, which calculates the particular genetic risk for one condition. At Mapmygenome, we have a machine learning ability and algorithm that is available, that is patented for calculations of these risk scores. And we provide that information to you in the report as a genetic risk score, as compared to the general population or people who may not have that particular genetic makeup. So insights that it can help you is, one, into your family history, understand who else is at risk, or what kinds of lifestyle do you share, or nutrition you share, that might increase or decrease your risk of developing these conditions. Macronutrient is essentially how do you balance your carbohydrate, protein, fats in your food that can help you achieve the best health that you would want. Lifestyle choices, so for example, how much exercise can you do, and what type of exercise might best suit you. Sleep patterns, we also understand who is a good sleeper, light sleeper, early waker, and you can modify your lifestyles based on that. Mental acuity and sharpening, we know that a lot of us, may have, for example, have a tendency to, keep repeating certain mistakes that we have. Or some of us may have a healthier brain aging process, and we want to know how we can make sure that we can reduce our risk of developing conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Along with that, understanding activity and what types of activity might best suit you are all the basic information that you can get. We also get information on various medications, what types of medications may work, what types of medication may not work for you as well. It's also referred to as pharmacogenomics. So Genome gives you information about your respiratory diseases, cardiac diseases, diabetes, cancers, immunological factors, neurological factors, as well as the set of basic medications, common medications that it can address. So talking a little bit about the pharmacogenomics, or how your medications or various types of medications might work for you. So all of us, at some point of life have taken a particular medication. So a simple example is, my dad, for example, had type 2 diabetes, was diagnosed a few years back, and he's on metformin right now. Mom has recently been identified to have type 2 diabetes, and she said, okay, let me just take the same medication. It's just metformin that is used for type 2 diabetes. But the same medication doesn't work for my mom. Why does that happen? So we know that how you intake a particular drug and how do you digest it and how does that have efficacy in you can vary from one person to the other. So essentially, we know for some individuals, certain drugs may have toxicity, meaning it can have an adverse reaction. Along with it, it may not work, it may not be beneficial for them. For some individual, you may have drug toxicity, but it may be something that works well, it is beneficial, it's doing its job, but you have some kind of reaction or some side effects to it. So whether it's nausea, vomiting, dizziness, mild ones, right? For some people, neither does it have any toxicity, but at the same time, it just doesn't function. It's not working. The metformin doesn't control the diabetes. And for some people, which is the best group, wherein the particular drug has 100% efficiency or is working the best and has no side effects or adverse reaction. So that is the best situation that you want to be in. So what are these factors that affect how you would respond to a particular drug? So we know there are intrinsic factors. So for example, age, gender, your ethnicity, your genetics. How good is your organ? Is your kidneys at 100% function? Is your liver at 100% function? If you have any other comorbidities, do you have cardiovascular disease along with diabetes? And pregnancy. These are all factors that can change the way a particular medication might actually work for you. At the same time, there are certain extrinsic factors, meaning these are factors that, for example, are taking multiple drugs or drug-to-drug interaction, that may change the way your medications might work for you. Alcohol intake, dietary intake, or environmental factors. So when we look at our genetic makeup, we can actually use that to predict how your response to a particular medication might be. And this is extremely useful, especially for people who are already identified to have genetic condition, to have these health conditions like diabetes or cancers or psychiatric conditions. We know in psychiatric conditions, 70% of the people keep changing the medication because it doesn't work for you. And in fact, FDA has a set or a class of medications that has been listed out, including warfarin, which is the common medication given to people who have cardiac issues, where genetics should be first looked at before prescribing the dosage and the amount of drug that should be given. And this is because this is essentially to mitigate the risks that the drug may potentially have. Okay. So I'll give you two scenarios to better understand how this information can actually help somebody, right? So scenario one, there is an individual who says, why should I do these kinds of tests at an early age? I'm just 30 years old. I'll get it done when I'm about 40, right? I don't have health issues like heart diseases, diabetes, or vision-related problems, right? At 30, you're mostly healthy. You're like, I'm just going on with my life. So this is a 30-year-old male who's healthy with a BMI of 20. But if you look at his family history, his father actually died at 45 after 2 episodes of fainting. And he's never had a preventative health checkup done, right? So when we look at individuals like these, 30 years is actually not early for a preventative health examination. Health screenings usually begin at the age of 18, especially if there is a family history that is present. So based on this particular history, and early screening and detection can actually help him to understand his treatments and prognosis better. We know such family histories can be associated with conditions of the heart where your rhythm is not functioning properly. And all of this should be screened for earlier. We know that there are genetic factors that can cause an increased risk of such conditions. So if this person is not aware of something like this, has not screened himself for it, there is a very high chance that he may have the condition just like his dad, and a high chance that he may have a severe, cardiac related issue like his dad has had, which never got picked up in the first place. So it's never too early to start your health screening, right? I'll give you another scenario. So this is a male who's 25, is unmarried, but he has obesity. He does 30 minutes of power yoga. He's on diet, but he's not losing weight. So he says, why do I need preventative health screening? I know that I have a weight problem and I'm taking steps towards it, right? What will happen to me anyway? So we know being overweight is an independent risk factor for several conditions: type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular issues, blood pressure, kidney function. All of these can get affected. The question is, he's doing power yoga, he's having, he is on diet, but he's not losing weight. Does he know whether he is genetically more prone to having increased amount of fats in his body? Are there any such vitamin deficiencies that can help him? What kind of exercise might potentially help him? So our muscles essentially have two types of fibers. We know that certain people are better at doing some forms of exercise as compared to other people who may be better at doing different kinds of exercises. So some people may be better off doing endurance sports, which is, long runs, so like marathon, cycling. Some people may be genetically better at doing high intensity exercises. So, for example, HIIT, or doing boxing, for example. So, depending on how your body makeup is it more prone for exercise, based on endurance or power? You can actually have a better outcome of your diet and exercise patterns. So this person would actually benefit from testing so that he can actually modulate the way his diet and exercise is to have a better outcome of his concern that he has right now. So at Mapmygenome, we have genetic counselors, who provide a personalized information, personalized action plan based on your genomic information. Along with that, we consider your personal history, your lifestyle factors, family history to come up with this management plan for you. So after you've undergone a genetic test with us, you will meet with a genetic counselor from our team who will sit down with you and ask you and talk to you about your report, but also ask you about questions about your personal and family history to then put these factors together and come up with a plan for you. Just a little bit about the company. Mapmygenome is a leading genomics company headquartered in Hyderabad. We have over 16 years of experience with a team of biotechnologists, statisticians, geneticists, genetic counselors. Our idea is a genetic health profile with your family history and genetic counseling can give you actionable steps towards a healthier life. So being forearmed is, being forewarned is being forearmed. And I hope that, this information has helped you understand how you can unlock your potential of your DNA to have a healthier life and a healthier aging process. Please feel free to ask any questions. We are here for having an interactive session. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.